for our next Spotlight on History Talk here at the Manassas Museum. I'm Mary Helen Dellinger, and I'm the curator of the museum, and I'm talking to you from our temporary exhibition gallery behind me. Now, normally this program is held at noon on Wednesdays, but for the next 2 weeks, today and next week, we're actually going to be live at 2 p.m. So kind of keep that in mind, and then we'll go back to noon, and we'll continue to remind everybody about the schedule change. If you can't make the 2 p.m. time, don't worry. All these videos will always be available on our Facebook page for viewing later on and for sharing with other people. So today we are going to take a look at our Native Legacy exhibition. This show opened last October, and hopefully many of you watching today or maybe later got a chance to see it before the museum was closed due to the pandemic. If you did not get to see it, here's your chance. My fabulous camera person, Lisa Siebelatten, is going to pan down the hallway here so you can take a look at this show. And I'll tell you a little bit about it as you're seeing it. This exhibit, again called Native Legacy, presents the culture of the Potomac people that lived in this area before European contact. The Native Americans or the Indians that lived here. So theirs was a rich and very vibrant culture that basically disappeared from the landscape after this area was settled by the white Europeans. Now, while their villages may have disappeared, the people themselves did not completely disappear. We still have Potomac Indians that live among us today. A lot of people are surprised to hear that, but yeah, there are several native tribes in Virginia, some of them federally and state recognized. The Potomac people have a very large population in neighboring Stafford County. This is just south of here. And they actually consulted with us on this exhibit. They were fantastic to help us out and to make sure that we got their story correctly. They survived in small numbers after European settlement and now still live here. Our ship on that. So what you're seeing here, this exhibit is made up completely of reproduction objects that we used and big backdrop pictures to give you the sense of being in a Potomac village. We worked very closely with also Jamestown Yorktown Foundation to borrow a lot of the objects that you see here and work with them on the images on the wall come directly from the villages down at Jamestown and Yorktown. So we appreciate their helping us out with this. We couldn't have done it without them. So all of these things that are out are reproductions, and when you see me later on in this video handling some pieces, you'll notice that I don't have on the white curator gloves. That is again because the objects are reproductions and we don't need to do that. Normally I would have them on, so we just want to make that very clear. So this is kind of a quick, as you can see, we transitioned from an inside scene to an outside scene. So if you weren't able to see it, you can kind of see. We just basically set a scene here. It's almost as if the native people who would have lived here have walked away. And so that's kind of the feeling that we wanted people to get in this gallery. So when we open back up after the pandemic is over and we can once again be together again at the museum, this show will be replaced by another one for you. And we hope that you are enjoying this one kind of final look. Okay, so this exhibit today, but I want to focus on one idea. And that idea is, where do you think that all these things you're seeing in the video, that's a drying rack right there that you're taking a look at now, where do you make pots with and to build their dwellings? So think about that for a moment. When you need clothing or if you need food, you go to the store, right? Have that opportunity. And the answer to the question, where do you think they got all these things, is pretty simple. Native Americans had to make or find no giant food, no restaurants, no place to go to buy things, so they had to make it or they had to find it. And this meant working very, very hard every day. So once Lisa's done showing this little bit right here, we're going to come down here and we're going to look at some of the things, the reproduction objects that we have, some of the tools that were in this exhibit. That we've pulled aside to show, and we'll talk about those and how the Native Americans would have made those.
Now, was this all part of their diet? They're eating shellfish and
So shellfish would have been very important to the diet of the native peoples that lived in this region. Think of the Potomac River, the tributaries for that. Shellfish would have been extraordinarily easy to gather. So, and that's kind of, obviously they don't have restrictions like we do today on when you can hunt and fish. So water was of course very important. Most villages were built near water because A, you needed water to drink, but also waterways were their superhighways. That was the way Native Americans got around. They would build canoes and use them to travel up and down with to visit local villages. So yes, so shellfish and were a very important part, and fish in general, of the native person's diet. Keep in mind that their diet was very seasonal. Native Americans that lived here would never have seen a pineapple. They never would have seen a diet would have consisted of things that they could find growing naturally in Virginia. So that's a lot of corn, berries that are in season, apples, and a heavy meat-based diet as well. They also ate a lot of plants that we wouldn't consider to be food today, but they were very adept at figuring that out. So here on this table are some of the pieces that we've pulled aside for use in this exhibit. So notice that these are all tools. These are a couple of animal pelts here, but we have 4 tools that the Native Americans used in their daily lives. So this is a reproduction gardening tool. It's a hoe. So you can kind of see, for those of you that might have worked a garden with your parents, how this looks similar. So in order to get this hoe, they would have had to find a stick like this that's relatively straight. See the stick? This piece on the end that you use to dig in the ground with is the shoulder bone of a deer. So you have to kill the deer and then get the shoulder bone out and attach it to your stick with little pieces of rope or twine that you have made from grasses or from animal intestines, anything that you could use to do that. So in order to make this, not only did you have to find the stick, but you also had to get the animal as well. So this is an interesting tool that was important to them and very key to their lifestyle. Another tool that they used, this is a reproduction scraper. Again, this is an animal bone. I don't know what animal that is. And then you would tie a sharp rock to this, if you can see the rock right there, to prepare them for making clothing or blankets or whatever it is that you might need. First before you could make the clothing or the blanket. So again, they had to make and find all this stuff. So here are production arrowheads in my hand. See how tiny they are? And now I'm going to hold up beside it. Lisa, if you could just stay right there. This is a larger spear point. So you see the 2 projectile points, commonly called arrowheads, and then the larger spear point. So you might wonder, what's the difference there? So think about the animals that they would be killing. So if you're going to eat and to use for blankets and things, if you're going to kill something small, like this squirrel, here's a squirrel fur. This is an actual squirrel fur that we also have a skunk. Yes, they killed skunks. You'd need small arrowheads for that. So if you're going to need these animals, you have to find the rocks that you can shape into these arrows. And you would use this with a bow and arrow, basically, which you also had to make. So again, making and finding, very important to think about that. So what would the spear have been used for then? Something big like this. So what do you think about that out there in Facebook land, the bigger animals? You wouldn't use this to kill a bird or a squirrel with. That'd be a bit much. But what if you were hunting a bear? Or what if you were hunting a deer? You might need something big like this. That's a pretty big animal. So think about, I'll step just over here real quickly. This is a deer skin. See, this is big like me. If you think that, probably not. That would just probably go into the animal and aggravate it a little bit and it would run off. But if you had one of these and you had multiple people hunting at the same time, you could definitely bring an animal down with a spear point. That's not to say you couldn't do it with a bow and arrow, but it would be a little bit more difficult. And so this is, we have several deer skins in this exhibit. These were also borrowed from various collectors, and these were used for clothing or blankets. And here we have these laid out on top of a reproduction bed that they would have slept on. They didn't sleep right on the floor. That's a thing that a lot of people think. We also have in this exhibit, this is a reproduction knife that we borrowed from a gentleman Native American, and he made this himself for use in his personal collection to use with reproduction programs. The handle is a bone. They wouldn't have had cows then. They would have used deer or other large animals. And then this is a big stone that he has chipped down into a knife point. I'll hold up again the arrowhead so you can see the difference. And he's tied it on with some leather rawhide that he has made by hand. So this is a knife that he has. So all of these things, tools were very, very important to the Native Americans. If they didn't have the tools, they would not be able to hunt the animals, nor would they be able to harvest the food that they had planted. And then you wouldn't have anything to eat, and you would not have anything to use in your home. So, thinking that these tools are very, very important to the Native Americans, I want to show you today, this is the symbol of the Potomac Indian tribe that lives in Stafford. And what do you see right in the center of that, with the A acting as the point? What does that look like to you? So that's an arrowhead right in the center. That's the symbol of their people. Now this is a modern symbol that they've come up with, but notice what they used for the center. They used an arrowhead in the symbol. That's the only one, imagery that they chose to use, the only image. That shows just how important that was to the Native peoples that lived here. This was what kept them connected to the land and allowed them to survive. And so we have a lot of these examples here in this exhibit. If you want to get your own reproduction arrowhead to have at home, like if you're a kid at home and you think this is cool, get your parents to order them online for you. Adults can order them too. And we do deliver in the Manassas area code, in the city of Manassas itself. We can deliver right to your house, or we can ship to you if you prefer that. And we also have, some people found this very interesting. Lisa, I don't know if you could show this or not. This is a map that was drawn by Captain John Smith. A lot of people will recognize that name. This is a reproduction map, big sticker on the wall, that shows all the various native tribes that were here when John Smith first arrived, right prior to European settlement. So if you like that map and you think it's cool, we've got reproduction copies also for sale in the museum store, and we can certainly bring you those. You can see in this map, I'll point out here, this is what Smith drew the native peoples that he encountered to look like. Notice that he's holding the bow and arrow. It's as big as he is. He's got a tool in this hand. We can't quite make that out. We think it might be a club. And he's got on a loincloth that he's used, and he's likely killed an animal to be able to make that. So the tools and the things, and the other pieces that I showed you, and some of the skins are exactly represented in this picture. These two small yellow dots, probably very hard to make out, are the original locations of the tribes that helped us with this exhibit. So this is where they would be located today, if you could overlay that on top of a modern day map. Those are our tribes today. So this was our really quick spotlight on histories. Are meant to be short, 10 minutes or less. And so that's kind of what we have today. Did we get any questions while we were online? No questions. Nobody's got a question, so that means we did a great job. So that's all for today. Quick lesson on stone tools to show you their importance to the Native people that lived here. So be sure to join us next Tuesday on May 5th when Rachel Goldberg, who's our fantastic programs coordinator, is going to bring you our very first hands-on history program. And this will be a cool little interactive program for stuff that you can make and do at home with the supplies that you have. Check out our website later this week at manassasmuseum.org for the exact timing of that. And as always, all of our videos are always posted for you to watch later and to enjoy when you can. I'm Mary Helen Dellinger, and I'll see you next week on Wednesday, May 6th at 2 p.m. for our next Spotlight on History.